Presence, the podcast for everyone interested in bodywork, embodiment, and somatic practices. I'm Andrew Rosenstock, your host and guide on this enlightening journey. With my expertise as a somatic movement therapist, yoga therapist, and certified Rolfer, I'll merge clinical insight with real-world experience to enrich our discussions with our guests. Through engaging and informative talks, this podcast delves into mind-body paradigms, offering insights and strategies to empower personal growth. Your support is vital for our grassroots and lo-fi production. If you connect with our content, please leave a positive review and subscribe on your preferred platform. Your engagement helps us reach a broader audience and supports our mission. So thanks for tuning in today to Touching into Presence. Fasten your seatbelt as we embark on a journey to explore the transformative power of contemplative and somatic practices together. Today's conversation is with Bill Smythe. Bill is a pioneer in somatic psychology and Rolfing structural integration with more than 4 decades of clinical practice and teaching. He's been a practicing Rolfer for over 40 years and previously served as a faculty member of the Rolf Institute. Bill was an early collaborator of Peter Levine and co-taught during the formative years of Somatic Experiencing. His work is also deeply informed by Biodynamic Craniosacral Therapy and many years of collaboration with Michael Shea. Beyond his therapeutic work, Bill is a lifelong martial artist and 5th degree black belt in Aikido, where the cultivation of presence, perception, and relational awareness has been central to both his teaching and practice. In today's conversation, Bill and I explored intersubjectivity, the therapeutic relationship, and what it means for 2 nervous systems to meet in a shared relational field. Bill reflected on his early years as a Rolfer, his training in somatic psychology, and how his work gradually shifted from a focus on technique toward a deeper appreciation of relationship, presence, and attunement. We discussed the role of transference and countertransference, practitioner self-awareness, and the importance of recognizing that healing unfolds not only through what we do, but through how we are with another person. Throughout the conversation, we returned to embodiment, phenomenology, and the felt sense. Bill spoke about the importance of helping people reconnect with a deeper instinctual vitality and inner knowing, while also exploring the ways attachment, boundary, safety, and relational regulation shape our experience of ourselves and others. Together, we reflected on the influence of Peter Levine, Jeff Maitland, and Ida Rolf, and on the idea that meaningful therapeutic work emerges from an ongoing practice of presence, curiosity, humility, and genuine human connection. I really enjoyed my time getting to meet Bill. We had a few calls beforehand, and I'm sure we'll have more calls together on the show. He's a really wonderful, curious, open-minded, open-hearted guy, and I enjoyed the talk and hope you do as well. And so with that, enough of me. Let's go listen to Bill Smythe. Yeah, Bill, hey, great to be in contact. I'm super happy to be talking with you tonight. We've had a few talks before and emails before, and there are some people when we connect with them, we're just like, yeah, that's a good connection. And I've really enjoyed that so far with you. I hope it's been at least some of that for you. But I'm excited.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's my New England self-deprecating humor. I'm still working on getting over that. I'm excited to talk because, as I actually mentioned to you in a previous call, you're someone it's like I'd heard your name for a while. And then I recently saw you'll be teaching a class in Santa Fe in August, I believe, right? August. Yes. And I was like, oh, yeah, Bill. Yes. I was so glad when it popped up on the radar. And so I wanted to also share you with people who listen to this show because I think you have a lot of really good stuff to offer. And you're also in some of the communities we share, like you're one of those people that everyone speaks highly of. And that's, I find rare in the world today when it's easy to put people down, but also in our communities, which can sometimes be a little bit, I don't like that person. Or they're doing hands-off Rolfing or whatever sort of whatever the people do. So I'm excited to, as I said a few times, to talk and share.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you.
Glad to have you. So we've had a few sort of even ideas of where we're going to go, but you were just talking to me before a bit about intersubjectivity, and I really was on board. So I don't know how easy it will be to kind of hop back into that, but if it feels all right, you want to kind of find our way back into that? You want to share some about that?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
I'd like to give a little background, if I may, of my history as a clinician. Not all of it, but just a piece of it to lead into intersubjectivity. I was trained and graduated in early 1979 as a Rolfer at the Rolf Institute. And prior to that, I did 2 years of massage therapy, deep tissue massage primarily. And I found early on in my clinical practice um, that clients wanted to tell me much of their deep intrapersonal life. A lot of it had to do with their trauma and their suffering. And although I appreciated and was honored, they felt safe enough to share with me their narrative, their narrative of trauma and history and wounding and so on. On the other hand, I felt inept in that I didn't feel I had the skills to navigate those qualities, those waters. So lo and behold, thankfully, I met Dr. Peter Levine at Dr. Rolf's memorial service in 1979. And I began to work with him as a client, and he opened up the whole world of the inner sensation and feeling and emotional life that I had been harboring and never really had the support in letting it unfold. So that supported me in my own journey, as well as allowing me to navigate and guide clients on the table with their emotional and sensory feelings. So over the years, I decided, well, I wanted to get a degree in somatic psychology because that deals with the body and it deals with psychology. And I wanted to have, again, a deeper understanding, a rootedness in how I could help people more and be with them in their moments of confession. It's sort of like a priest. You go to a priest and you confess. And good psychotherapist friends of mine say the same thing. They feel like a confessor, that when a patient really trusts them, they unload everything. Well, I became that. I became that. So I thought I better have a degree to not only have on my card and prevent to allow for success and support of the clients to feel good with me. I also needed it for my own understanding. So during my graduate school training, I chose to do a thesis on intersubjectivity and the practice of Rolfing, because I realized with the guide of my master's counselor that what I was most interested in the clinical setting, being a hands-on person, that my intrasubjectivity, my inner self, was meeting the other's self, one subject to the other. So I thought I would define that field. And hence, in honor to Dr. Rolf and her work, in my own learning and understanding, I wrote a thesis called Intersubjectivity in the Practice of Rolfing. And of course, that opened up a whole lot of opportunities for me in the teaching community of not only Rolfers, but other touch therapists on two key issues that came up in the world of psychology. Freud term transference and countertransference. We all know that the patient's transference or projection of their incomplete issues are projected onto the therapist. Also, the therapist has their issues that are triggered in the therapeutic dyadic situation where they're imagining or thinking or feeling things, dislike or liking, with their client that there's no space for. So I began to create workshops in that, so that the client, rather the therapist, was able to have a container to hold their countertransferential issues. And I really know this from experience, not only with myself, but also with being with many other experienced colleagues. A lot of therapeutic burnout, a lot of, whether it be psychotherapy or Rolfer or massage, all of the helping professions, it's common they have therapeutic burnout. And a lot of this is because they're not taking care of their own needs outside of the practice, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
meditation, therapy, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to clear it, to
Mm-hmm.
clear whatever it is in them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I've had to do my own therapy over the years, off and on, because the unfinished business in my psyche and an emotional self that is not resolved and continually gets triggered by a particular kind of client or client's issues become an obstacle for me to really be present, because I'm preoccupied with this feeling of, actually, it's a dysregulation. I'll shift a little bit to neuroscience because you and I talked a little bit about that.
Please.
We can't talk about intersubjectivity, particularly in the therapeutic dyadic relationship, without also talking about two beings meeting another, such that their neural networks, not only their fascia, their bones, their blood, their lymph, everything, but the way everything is neurally connected. So when you and I are on this podcast right now, and I'm glad I get to see your handsome face, that we're having a communicative, a verbal relationship.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, our bodies are responding
Mm-hmm.
to each
Yeah.
other in
Yeah.
some way. We don't have to get into what that is, but this takes place in all relationships. So, what the grad school training and my continual practice has shown is that there are neurophysiological cues that appear with a client when I first meet them
Mm-hmm.
that I never used to see or perceive. I was one of those, yeah, let's get to work, get down to your underwear, let's get to the table, let me straighten your body. That was the old motto in the old-fashioned Rolfing days, right?
Mm.
It
Right.
wasn't about establishing rapport and relationship, which psychotherapy does.
Mm.
And hence, that's when a lot of what we would call hard Rolfing or painful Rolfing
Mm-hmm.
began to happen, because the practitioner didn't take their time in engaging and connecting with the client.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my field of study in grad school was, along with somatic psychology, was pre and perinatal psychology. And the roots of our body come from not only genetics, the joining of mother and father's energies, but also through the attachment with the mother,
Mm.
which takes place in the beginning of the first trimester all the way to 2 years of age. So that basically our mothers are our external regulators of our psychoneurobiological self, our
Mm.
forming selves. We are not autonomous. We are
Mm.
dependent upon our primary caregiver. Well, guess what? Even after two, at the end of the maternal phase, when the development of the brain shifts from the right hemisphere, bodily states of being, to the left, which is the paternal hemisphere, language acquisition, autonomy, and so on, is body workers, as touch therapists, and I would even say as psychotherapists, talking is a way of touching.
Mm.
Talking with another is a stimulus. For every stimulus, there's a response,
Right.
whether it be looking at someone, you know, talking to someone, however it is, there's always this interaction of one brain to the other. So, as you and I excitedly talked the other night about phenomenology, and particularly somatic phenomenology, is it's working with the lived body,
Mm-hmm.
the living body, which includes the mind, the brain and the body and nerves and everything else. So it's important to know anatomy. Dr. Rolf used to say in the early days, to be a Rolfer, you don't have to know anatomy, but you have to know anatomy.
Mm.
Because as a way of locating specifically where someone may be bound or dysfunctional in a joint or in an organ or in a diaphragm, whatever it is, It allows for greater specificity in our clinical work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, holding the space, the relational field, is what's most important. And that's what my workshop coming up in August is about, is that recent research has shown that the relationship of client and therapist plays a greater role in clinical success than whatever techniques the
Hmm.
practitioner has.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that from my
Yeah,
own experience.
yeah. I remember, if I may share with our phone call the other night,
Yeah.
about you
Yeah.
working with a client that where in it, it got me excited to meet you on your show, because you and I are very like-minded. Even though I'm much older than you, your response to a female client, I believe, where you realized whatever it was, and you can share what that was, how you knew
Mm.
that it wasn't appropriate to touch her then. In fact, you suggested she get in the waiting room while
Mm.
you were in the other room.
That was my third time with that client. So that was the first time we did that, and it was trying to figure out what was the best way to meet them because they had a lot going on. And I would love to say I can tell you what told me to do that, but I can't. A lot of it is the phenomenology. There was a feeling, there was this sense in my body that said, don't go any closer. Which, we could, from a neuroscience perspective, we could say, okay, so this is going into peripersonal space and maybe some body schema stuff. But there was sort of a sense of any closer and this person is already retreating, like failing. So what can we do to have this person want to be here, to feel that they belong here and to feel safe in the space?
Yeah. I imagine that, because I know it's true for me, that you said that inner feeling, that
Mhm.
sense,
Mhm.
Eugene Genlin calls
Mhm.
that
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
felt sense in focusing, right?
Yeah,
The
that's
felt
my
sense is, it's that feeling that you don't know yet, right?
yeah,
You cannot put into words.
the
I
implicit.
would I would say I've had lengthy conversations with Dr. Peter Levine and Stephen Porges and others, experts in their fields I
Mhm.
respect a lot,
Mhm.
and they seem to concur with the idea that the felt sense arises from a very primitive instinctual part of us.
Mhm. Yeah.
And in fact, which leads me to the next piece that I'm passionate about, is that what I'm finding over the years is what needs enlivening,
Mm.
vitalization. And I'm speaking subjectively with my clinical work, working with people that come to see me for physical pain usually.
Mhm.
Also psycho-emotional pain, not as much as I would suggest them to see a psychotherapist. But in my skill set, I find that what I provide is an opportunity for people to discover or reconnect with their inner primal animal.
Mm.
You know, one of Peter Levine's best-selling books that brought many people to his somatic experiencing trainings
Mhm.
is called Waking the Tiger.
Mhm.
And without the listeners having to go read that book, although I highly recommend it, is the title says it all, is that I want to provide an opportunity to awaken whatever your inner animal is:
Mm.
tiger, bear, squirrel, deer, antelope, whatever it is, buffalo. And of course, there's the whole Native American Indian cosmology around that. And many people, well, less than integrous people have held workshops on helping people find their animal spirits, and it's all bogus, because I work with the Native American Indians and there's other
Mhm.
ways of finding it. But what you can do as a skillful somatic phenomenologist is it elicit that inner, we call it fire in the belly,
Mhm.
the deepest instinctual sense. In the Japanese world is called hara.
Mm,
I come from a martial arts background, and it's cultivating the deep hara, the lower dantian in
mhm,
Asian medicine. Then there's the middle dantian, the heart, and then the upper dantian is the intellect. All
mhm,
three are necessary, but at the base of it all is the hara.
mhm,
And in fact, in Japan, there's a whole medical system of hara diagnosis. They listen with the stethoscope to the hara, not the heart.
mhm,
They listen to the hara and they can tell how vital the system is. And you learn to see that and sense that. So, and that's the locomotor system, the deep center.
mhm,
So I want to segue in. You've got me excited to talk about intersubjectivity and then somatic phenomenology, the
mhm,
living body. And in terms of trauma, which is what I feel skilled to work with from my years of studying with Peter Levine, is it all ties in on the idea of embodiment, is that we want to get a person to a place to be in their themselves.
mm,
And we talked about, safety is a big concern these days, safe space.
mhm,
Well, I know that safe space comes primarily at the deepest level from the inside.
mhm,
The deepest place we can have safety is deep in our gut.
mhm.
And it's the ability to know that we can say no. So, one of the things I notice when I get particularly a female client that will say, "Well, do you want me to take all my clothes off right away?" And I go, "Oh, no, no, please don't. No,
Mhm.
let's not go there." Right. So, I already know that there's some boundary issues with that. So, I know that I need to use all of my skills and ability to provide an opportunity for her to start to establish more firm boundaries. So there's exercises I could have her do. I won't go into those here, but just simply saying no from the belly, for instance, start to establish boundaries because
Mhm.
boundaries are real. They're energetic, but they're also physical. And as you said earlier in our conversation, the peripersonal space,
Mhm.
that's defined by taking a person's arm length and going around the sphere of their body. That can be measured
Well, there's also
with,
there's a version of it. I think it's the peripersonal space. That's also, for example, my arm can go here, but I can feel beyond that. And so so when someone comes into my space, even though it's beyond my hand, there might be a sense of that's too close. You're in my where I can feel the person.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 We could have a whole dialogue on that, on the space, the personal space.
Yeah, it reminds me when during one of my Rolf training classes, we did an exercise where you would walk towards someone and someone would say stop when they felt that someone was too much in their space. And
Yes.
I remember for me how whatever reason I'm sensitive to people in space around me, which I actually recognize is a trauma response that at some point I wasn't safe and so I needed to be safe, but now I've adapted to it. And so in this one training, I literally had someone walking on me because it didn't bother. I was aware of them, but I wasn't threatened by them. So
Mm,
I knew when they were threatened. I knew when they were walking to me when they got threatened. I could feel in their response. But for me, and I was pissing the teacher off because she says, "No, no, stop when it's too close." I'm saying, "But it isn't. They could. I feel safe in the space that the space
yeah,
wasn't
right.
in it." She did not like me. In fairness, I wasn't doing what she was asking for.
I
But
understand that.
but
Yeah.
I was also trying to make a point that, and this ties into also safety about I like to say that there's two types of a lot of things. This ties into phenomenology, but for me, there's two types of safety. There's a safety that you were talking about, which is a deep felt sense of safety. And then there's what
Yes.
I will call conceptual safety. And my concern is that I get a lot of clients now who've learned the language of psychotherapy and they're talking about nervous system and they're talking somatic and they're talking safety.
Right, right.
And they're saying,
Yeah,
well, my
yeah.
my nervous system doesn't feel safe. And what I'm often trying to get them to do is say, no, that's not exactly it. Your mind, something in your ontology is saying this isn't safe, but it's not a feeling, and that these things get conflated way too much. And,
Beautiful. Yeah,
yeah.
that's beautiful. Yeah, because a lot of the clients we get nowadays, particularly you do, you're younger than me, and then you're
Mm.
in the Boston intellectual community there. There's as I when I lived in New York, I had most of my clients were very therapized for many years. If you live
Yeah,
in New
yeah,
York, you pretty much have to have a therapist, right? And
yeah,
I even treated therapists, and they wanted to intellectualize what embodiment was,
yeah, yeah. Which is
and
kind of
it's
impossible.
yeah, it is. It's hard to is a yeah, it's near impossible. Yeah.
Yeah,
But from
yeah.
talking, because of your interest and passion in philosophy and
Mm.
phenomenology, that's where we I felt we connected, among other things.
Yeah.
And that and your interest in Jeff Maitland, who was a dear friend of mine and colleague, and I co-taught with him one of his last advanced classes before he got Parkinson's, and
Mm.
God rest his soul, he's on the other side now. But he contributed a lot to the world of Rolfing, and certainly contributed to my life in supporting me as a somatic phenomenologist. And he was a tenured philosopher at Purdue University, you probably know, and very,
Yep.
very
Yeah.
sharp. So when he came on the Rolf Institute faculty, he was a breath of fresh air because he began to create systems of perception and observation
Mm.
in our clinical work that were really grounded and coherently explained in a particular kind of language.
Yeah.
And I sense that about you in our conversation, and I respect that because that's where we have to go. I
Mm.
really
Well,
believe this is where this work has to go.
I think you and I agree with that. I mean, as far as Jeff being a breath of fresh air, I think it depends whose area you're talking about. When I read it, I've shared this before on the show, but when I read his book, when I read Spacious Body the first time, I couldn't finish it, and I didn't like it. I thought he was such a pompous asshole. And then I read the book again, and I liked the book, but I still didn't like Jeff. And then I read the book the third time, and I loved the book, and I loved Jeff. And the thing I always say is Jeff didn't change, and the book didn't change. Yet the fresh air, I wasn't able to receive the fresh air first. I wasn't in a place where I could understand it. And so I would say people who are in similar places to that would disagree with us when you and I say that's where the work needs to go because there's something very rich there, there's something very embodied, there's something preconceptual there. And you and I would agree with that, but I'm positive there are others who won't, and that's okay. It took me a while to get there myself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your candor, and as I mentioned in our conversation the other night, my background, Jeff used to call me a closet intellectual.
Hmm.
I although I did fine in school, my focus as a young man was in athletics. I was
Hmm.
swimming, water polo, surfing, skiing, martial arts, 47 years as a martial artist. So I have a years, many, many decades of practice on embodiment in high level physical things. And what most people don't know about Dr. Jeff Maitland, the way that he and I said a breath of fresh air, I realize
Yeah.
that's being very subjective
Yeah.
because he alienated not a lot of people because his sword was his words.
Hmm.
He demonstrated
Yeah.
that the pen,
Hmm.
in typing, his words were very strong, and they were activating for a lot of people, especially in the Rolf Institute. And
Hmm.
of course, he and I got along because you may not know this. He was a boxer. His
Oh, I never knew
father
that.
was his father was a boxer.
Hmm.
So his father taught him as a young boy boxing,
Hmm.
and he competed in boxing.
Interesting.
And so he shared that with me, and because he knew I was, a fighter, a martial artist. So we had that common ground. So I was so glad when he shared it because as he did, I observed a big release in him.
Hmm.
that he didn't have to hold up the mantle of Dr. Jeff Maitland,
Mm.
not only as a tenured philosophical professor, he was also a Zen monk,
Yeah.
you know. I
Yeah.
mean, he was initiated. He was a very dedicated student.
Mm.
He was a very serious minded guy. And I knew him well. He was always working. Whether he was treating clients or writing, he would call me up on the weekends. We'd have long discussions and he'd share things and ask me to help him edit an article he was writing for his next book. We had a very rich relationship. And I just want to share that because a lot of who I am today and my intellectual understanding about what the work is about comes from my years with Jeff Maitland. Of course, been blessed with many other
Yeah. It sounds.
senior faculty members in my years,
Mhm.
that I got to teach with and hang out with and receive work from. But um, and I want to also say at the heart of the work that you and I share
Mhm.
as Rolfers, and I know we're more than Rolfers at some of our training. But one of the things that Dr. Rolf, I was also blessed by one of the teachers I won't mention that gave me all of the sacred notes he took from Dr. Rolf, who we spent the last years of Dr. Rolf's life with.
Mm.
And her aphorisms, she was famous for
Yeah.
aphorisms,
Yeah. She's
right?
got great ones.
One of them was that Rolfing is for the Rolfer. She used to say, Rolfing is for the Rolfer. And what I want to say about that is that it's such an honor and a gift for me. I'll speak to my own subjectivity to be able to be gifted to share this work with others and to witness them blossom, grow, unfold with who they are to reach their full potential. But at the same time, I know that by providing that, by me being the guide for them,
Mm.
I'm also serving myself to my betterment.
Mhm.
It's like it's anything that you practice with, whether it be a Zen priest or a Tai Chi master or an Aikido master. If you continue to share what you've
Mhm.
been given, you will refine yourself.
Mhm.
It's a path,
Mhm.
it's a way of growing and unfolding.
Mhm.
So I give thanks to that.
Mm.
The other thing that Dr. Rolf said, which shakes a lot of trees, is she said, the practice of Rolfing is the practice of shamanism,
Mm.
that you have to be willing, because she had a lot of shamans around her. That's not known in common Rolfing culture anymore, but I was from the early days.
Mm.
So she had oftentimes many medicine men around her. They were drawn to her because they could feel, they could see with their intuitive ways
Mhm.
what she was about. They knew they could sense her field, and
Mm.
to watch her work, they knew that she had a special gift.
It
So
makes
by
sense.
shamanism, what I'm by shamanism is it's a shaman is someone that's open to the natural world
Mm.
and is really passionate about following the ways of nature. And of course, when we get to work with bodies,
Mhm.
that's living nature right with
Mhm.
us, our nature with another's nature. So these I'm sharing with you now. I'm getting down a little deeper into my real deep passions about this this service work
Mhm.
that I've been given to do. You know, and
Y-
go
Bill,
ahead. I want to
no,
hear from you.
I'm laughing because as we talked about before in a private call, you and Michael Shea to me have so much. There's so much in common. So even when you're speaking, I'm hearing Michael, hearing parts of Michael in you or relations with Michael, and it's just making me smile because I adore Michael, and it just as far as like this the service work, this is all very similar to your good friend Michael Shea. So I'm just
Yeah.
laughing and I'm holding him in my heart because again, I just adore him.
Well, I love Michael. We've been soul brothers for years,
Yeah.
and yeah, I talk to him all the time. I text him
Yeah.
almost every day. We're in touch, and it's nice because I moved to South Florida, so I'm an hour away now. We get to see each other more and exchange work.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing about the shamanism I hadn't heard before, but it makes sense to me in a certain regard towards how I currently practice, which is a lot of, I have a lot of titles of things I do. A Rolfer, somatic movement therapist, biodynamic cranial sacral therapist, yoga therapist, a lot of things I've studied. And for me, they're all sort of the same thing. They're a way of looking how a human being is organizing in the world and how they are being with the world. And one of the ways I sort of have, I don't know if I've learned or what it is, but when I work, I often talk a lot for various reasons, but I actually don't know what I'm saying most of the time. I'm sort of in union and I'm just sort of meeting the person and in sort of a state of flow. I mean, there's some thought happening, but often I'm just kind of flowing with things. And I could say it sounds maybe pretentious to say, but it is very much this union with nature. And I could see similarities to the shaman, not in terms of like a forcefulness or like, hey, you have to drink this tea that we've made, but really, I see the shaman as someone whose role is similar to a therapist, similar to others, which is I'm here to have a space to have transformation, to allow for transformation to happen for you. And that's the way that I practice the work that I practice in the role, how I come about Rolfing is all about that. And I think about one of the other aphorisms that Dr. Rolf is known for, which is we Rolfers are educators or something along that lines, that the key of what I'm trying to do there is awareness, is education. And so how, I had a new client today who was, really looking for me to beat her up. And I was sort of educating her the whole time saying, you can't even lie on the table. Like, why would I give pressure? You're already telling me, you're already in your body saying, do not like, don't come in. Why would I push harder? And it actually took her so long to kind of get it. But by the end, it was just like, oh, wow, I've never even thought of this before. And she was becoming more aware. And to me, I sometimes would call that free rolfing, where I'm like warming the person up or getting them ready to even receive the work. But there's that similarity, I think, too. That's all about the space and how is this person organizing to the space to receive the work, which is what the shaman is. So it makes total sense to me.
Well, that's great that I knew that when I met you on the phone, and it's reinforced now being with you on this Zoom call that um, one of the perceived gifts that you carry, I can see and feel and hear in you is you have a wonderful connection with your body and your mind and communication. One of the aspects that I bring to my classes and my used to in my Rolfing trainings when I taught long Rolfing trainings is you want to be able to verbally express with the client
Hmm.
what you're feeling. For instance, if a client, I'll give you an example. I remember years ago may I do that?
Please,
I remember
please.
years ago I had a number of clients, but I'm remembering this one particular woman that was very fit. She was an exercise junkie, Pilates, weights, running, but there was no response to my stimulation. No matter how much I touched her, where I touched her, how I touched her, there was no feedback in the tissue or in her affective self, no size, no autonomic discharge, right? Finally, I decided I was so frustrated. My countertransferential issues were up in spades. I was ready to explode. I finally said, I took my hands off her and I said, you know, I'll use her word, Linda, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot of rage right now. That's all I said. And I trusted, this was years ago, I trusted that I would just wait to see if there was any ripple in the stream that I was working on. And all of a sudden, she was on her side in a third hour position. She rolled over and sat up. She said, I've been so fucking pissed off for years, and I don't know what to do with it. So I work out a lot. I just try to work it out every day with extreme athletics. And that was a breakthrough, right? So here I'm giving, what I'm amplifying is we as clinicians, we're of service, but we also have to have self-care. I have to have a very high self-care quotient for me to do the level and depth of work I want to do with another,
Hmm.
which requires me to be authentic, like you invited us to be together in this video. And so for me to be healthy and clear with another and authentic, if I'm feeling something that's not being shared in the session, I
Hmm.
won't do it immediately, but I have a good felt sense. I have a
Hmm.
well endowed felt sense now from years of doing this to differentiate whether it's me or them, or if it's me and I have something in the way here, I have to just say, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling blah, blah, blah,
Hmm.
and waiting. And 9 out of 10 times,
Hmm.
it shifts everything, it shifts the dynamic relationship. And then we can do real work, right? I will caution the listeners because I know this comes up naturally with all humans in relationship. Any sexual feelings that I may be having
Hmm.
in the presence of another, I never share that.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
things I have to hold so sacred that I don't bring that into the field of relationship. That would be too
Well,
confusing. But what were you going to
no,
say?
I was gonna say I'm thinking about times where it might come up that you are aware of what you're perceiving is maybe something in them. And depending on the relationship, if there is enough safety, there might be a way of organizing around it without directly saying it, that there could be a way where it could be therapeutic or it could be safe. I'm trying to like think of examples of it, but I can't. But it's just it's part of me doesn't really always love absolutes, and so it's just like never do it. I'm thinking I hear you, and I could see times where it something might be arising, and I'm generally not one who will even say what I'm feeling as much as hint around it, and I like to have my clients bring it up more instead of saying, "Hey, I'm noticing," like, "Hey, I'm noticing you whatever." But I don't know if a part of me, and I could be wrong, and I'm happy to disagree on it. But a part of me would say,
No, let me just say
"Yeah,
there's no right and wrong. It's individual styles. I realized after I said that, I
mhm,
gave a very extreme example,
yeah."
you know, but I want you to stay with your style. That's the best thing to do. There's
It's
different
good for
styles
my
for each of us.
I hope my style never stays the same, Bill. If I'm still doing the same thing in 5 years, that means I'm not growing. So I
Yeah.
like hearing. I generally prefer constructive feedback or criticism. My wife sometimes says I'm a masochist for that reason. Like I want her to tell me what I'm doing wrong, how I'm not supporting her, because I don't get better by doing the same thing. I get better by hearing other ways and saying, "Oh, yeah, okay, I hadn't thought about that. I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of that." But yeah,
Yeah.
there's something you were saying that's kind of ties back, which is about you mentioned earlier taking care of the therapist's own needs, and that you kind of brought that in there again. And like, and you mentioned as well that you and Michael trade sessions. So that's one way that Bill's taking.
Hmm.
This is something I found really helpful for my own self. I have two practitioners I try to trade with when we can. One is a biodynamic cranial, and one's a Rolfer. And I try to trade with them when I can to take care of myself. What I also do is I'm really fortunate. Partly this, like being in conversation with other people, like I am with you, is actually very therapeutic and very helpful for me. And I have a few practitioners who I just feel safe and comfortable with, similar like you and Michael. And I love on the weekend I have a Rolfer in Hawaii who I'm close friends with, and when we can, he might say, "Dude, I got to tell you about this client," or I might say, "Hey, man, I want to share what's happening," and we kind of work through stuff. And often he or I might be like, "Yeah, I get why you did that. Here's some other ideas." Sometimes it's that, or sometimes it's just listening and saying, "Hey, man, I'm here for you. I'm here to listen to you. I want to like," and for us to express with each other and share. I don't know. I find it really helpful. I wish more of us did
Oh, it's
that.
so good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It doesn't even, like you said, you have this friend in Hawaii. I would imagine most of your relationship with him is on the telephone or Zoom, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
get to see
Now,
him physically. Yeah,
not often.
yeah.
Not often. Yeah.
No. So when I lived in Santa Fe for 30 years and Michael was in Juneau, we would have once a month a conference call. It'd end up sometimes 2 hours. And
Yeah.
we would do what you and your buddy in Hawaii did. We would just download with another brother, right?
Yeah.
Saying, this is what, hey, I'm struggling with these issues, whether it be a client or something. We all need a confessor.
Hmm.
We all need someone. And when I said outside of the practice, we need to
Hmm.
have self-care,
Hmm.
what you just said is the best kind of self-care, being with someone you love and trust and you can show yourself with,
Hmm.
and you have a witness.
Yeah. It's
That makes
yeah.
all the difference.
Yeah, I don't know about
Yeah.
you. Again, I've mentioned her a few times. I do love my wife, but she doesn't understand this world yet. It's just not for, she's
No,
not,
no.
yeah, and that's fine. So I don't always share stuff with her, partly because if I'm talking about something in a more phenomenological way, it's not really in her alley, and she doesn't really care. She's happy to listen,
No.
but she it doesn't. And again, for me, I want to have the express. I want to express. I want to be the expressor, but I also appreciate the pushback or the what back or the some from someone who understands. So yeah, I think it's great. I'm very lucky that I have a few colleagues and both men and women because I like to also hear different ways of thinking about it. I'm pretty blessed, man.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's I think it's very wise of you to know that you love your wife and you can tell her certain things. I love my wife dearly. My wife is also trained in trauma therapy and all,
Oh,
but
nice.
I don't tell her everything. I'd rather talk to Michael, my buddy, Michael Shea,
Hmm.
about therapeutic issues than my dear wife because he's in the field.
Yeah.
He's a colleague, it's different.
Mm. It's
It's
different.
different
Yeah.
than we have other talks with our intimate others.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm enjoying this conversation we're having together because it's nurturing for me too. I've been a lone ranger for a while, so it's
Well, I
nice to.
think it's one of the reasons I started this sort of show is there is this sort of I have a friend who's I guess he's technically a former Rolfer because he doesn't pay the dues, but he always he's like Rolfers or Mavericks, and it's kind of true, We like
Yeah,
we go to our areas and we kind of like traditionally that's or originally that's what it was. You'd get your training and then you would get you'd go somewhere and you hang up your shingle and you're kind of by yourself, and
yeah,
I've got a 4 or 5 rolfers, not even other SI practitioners, a ton in our area. And I've been like trying to organize something for us to get together because in Maryland area, there's a group that gets together. I think that's great, but we often don't do that. And we are kind of these isolated solo units.
yeah.
Yeah. So I've been
It,
enjoying having conversations with people like you, and then also, yeah, people all over, Rolfers in different parts, and other embodied artists in different parts of the world. It's been great.
oh, that's great. I'm glad you got this show. This is a nice thing. Yeah, it's a nice opportunity to have deep discussions, deep connection.
Yeah.
Talk about what really is in our lives, in our work,
And
because
this
this is
actually,
not something you go to get a book for.
well, and with that, it's the joy of okay, well, so here Bill and Andrew can be in conversation about this, but Jane, so and so gets to take part in it, and then by them listening, they get to in some way join the conversation, and so they might not have someone nearby to talk about this stuff, but they can listen and they might be able to also say, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's where I was thinking," or "Oh, I hadn't thought of it that
Mm,
way," or whatever it is. So that was kind of one of the other things of like community I was trying to do here was to allow for a sort of surrogate conversation for our community.
Oh, great.
My presumption is Bill and I could talk for a while, and we've in some ways barely scratched the surface. I mean, I have notes of like things I wanted to get into, but also I like to keep things loosely around an hour, which is where we are. And also it's later because I'm on the East Coast.
I respect that. Sure.
But I always like to kind of end with a sense of like, even though technically you could say it's my show, I don't really want to be the navigator of sorts. I want presence. I want whatever to be the navigator. And so I might have my preferences, but I put them aside if it's not for the greater good. And so with that, what I'm essentially trying to say is there more that Bill still says, hey, but I still feel that this needs to be expressed, or I still want to talk about this, or, where's Bill in the overall scheme of things right now?
I feel really good and I feel complete for now.
Yeah, same.
I don't want to open up another can of,
Oh,
another
I
this,
do, but
this is yeah,
yeah,
I
I
know,
do, but I
but I'm
don't.
but I'm I'm respectful of the time and you're 2 hours later than I am. And no, this has been very rich and fulfilling. Thank you for inviting me.
It's been my pleasure. I have a thought that we will be doing this again because I think there's good stuff here. And the show will go out and live on in sort of eternity. But in the meantime, whenever I get it done, hopefully in the next few weeks, and a few weeks to months after that, you'll have a class. And so people will also be able to, in some way, continue that conversation in person with you. And so I encourage people listening to study with Bill, have time with Bill.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to us at Touching into Presence. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. You can find out more about Bill at williamsmythe.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate it if you would leave a positive review of the podcast and subscribe to it through the platform of your choice. When you do this, it really helps other people find us, and we greatly appreciate your support. We look forward to hearing back from you and seeing you on our next conversation at Touching into Presence. Bye for now.